This program is brought to you by Pussy Magnets.
Put a midge on your friend with a pussy magnet.
Welcome, my lovely lumps. Or should I say lovely labs? I'm so thrilled to have you here in the Labia Lounge to yarn about all things sexuality, womanhood, holistic health, and everything in between. Your legs. Can never help myself. Anyway, we're going to have vag loads of real chats with real people about real shit. So buckle up. You're about to receive the sex ed that you never had and have a bloody good laugh while you're at it. Before we get stuck in, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm recording this, the Menang people. It's an absolute privilege to be living and creating dope podcast content on Noongar country, and I pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. Now, if you're all ready, let's flap and do this. Oh God, is there such thing as too many vagina jokes in the one intro? Whatever, I'm leaving it in. It's my podcast.
Don't panic, you're not broken. Your sex education was a piece of shit. Get your flaps out and pull up a couch. It's the Labia Lounge.
Hello, my labial love bugs. Welcome back to the lounge. I've got a special guest today to chat about all things rituals. And I guess some people might think, or, hear the word rituals and think that it always has to be kind of woo-woo or, uber ceremonial, and it's not for them. But I would love to sort of have a chat today about how you can actually bring these sorts of rituals and things into your life or create activities or things that you do that feel a little bit more ritualistic and sacred or ceremonial, but, in a chill way, not in a way that has to be off-putting or inhibitory if you're a little bit turned off by the woo. I love a bit of woo, but I also like things to be really practical and grounded and tangible. So I'm kind of in that middle ground. But I've got someone here today to chat with me about rituals, Yani Foord. So Yani's an empowerment guide, sharing her wisdom and experiences to guide women on their journey of self-discovery. And she specializes in activating the divine feminine within, increasing her clients' sensitivity and emotional intelligence. Her techniques recode the brain with new helpful beliefs that help them reach their highest potential in this lifetime, which is pretty badass. And so Yani's a great person to chat to about rituals because I find her really down to earth and grounded and quite I guess Yani, like, you use rituals in your day-to-day life in ways that I feel like could be more easily relatable and applicable to like the average Joe in a way. I think sometimes every now and then I've done an episode that's been like incredibly, with a guest who's very, very spiritual and very energetic and has sort of gone on a few tangents, and I've had the feedback that my listeners were like, "Ooh, that really lost me there. Like I didn't I did not resonate with that. That was a bit too woo." And I'm not afraid of the woo, but I guess I was keen to chat with you and have a very practical, down-to-earth talk about this, just to pull it apart for people in case, they are a bit put off or alienated by the word ritual, because I think it can be really powerful and special and just a nice little witchy thing to introduce into our day-to-day lives. So anyway, massive preamble. Welcome, Yani. I'm stoked to have you here.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to have this chat today.
Brilliant. So, all right. Well, I guess for the skeptics or for the people that just don't know much about it or that might be curious, why do you feel rituals are so important? Like, why are they so important in your life? And how do you think that, I guess, our culture could benefit from more rituals in our daily lives?
Love this. So yeah, rituals is literally just a practice. And for me, I see it as devotion to self or like the honoring of someone else, right? And it's just like life is a ceremony. And the more that we treat life as a ceremony, the more in flow that we can be and feel more connected to ourselves. So it can help in today's culture because if we put ourselves first before doing anything, like helping with the kids, if you had just 10 minutes to yourself, if that be in a silent meditation or just having a cup of tea, literally just having something in place where you honor yourself and you choose to come from that heart space and raise your frequency, then that's how you set your day. And that's how you can be from heart space, and you, from that space, you choose to respond instead of react. And that's how it's benefited me. Like, as soon as I started doing these practices, having these morning practices in my day, then my heart has expanded because I'm choosing myself before anything else. And like, from society conditioning, sometimes we were told that's selfish. And so it was frowned upon to choose ourselves before anything else. And that's why we're being so much givers, like especially like parents and stuff, like they give so much to their kids, and it's just forgotten about to actually put ourselves first. And it's so important. It's so important.
Yeah, so important. And I think like so many people do kind of little rituals in their lives without realizing, like without actually giving it that label, you know, like it can sound so like, oh, I don't know, ritual, but it's actually just that, you know, like I'm sure you could give us some examples of really simple things that are actually quite ritualistic, you know, that maybe regular people do.
100%. Like literally just walking the dog, okay? So that's out in nature. Like today, that's grounding is what we call it, spirituality, right? Grounding. But when you're outside in nature, it's really important to have that barefoot contact. So when I'm out walking the dog or out walking by myself, I'm always barefoot. And a lot of people will say, oh, aren't your feet cold? Or, you know, like they're like, you forget your shoes at home, like they question. Like, why am I barefoot outside? And then I'm like, oh no, I'm just grounding, I'm connecting into the earth, and they don't expect that answer. But it's just giving that knowledge of like allowing that connection to our earth in Gaia, because the science behind it is the electrons get to move up through our body, it gets rid of free radicals, and that therefore preventing inflammation in our body, which stops like all disease. Like inflammation is the starting point of all disease. So something as simple as that, just when you're going out walking, make sure you have bare feet, you know, and start with grass, so soft terrain to begin with. I'm a bit like Pocahontas, so I can walk on rocks and stuff now, but but that's something that everyone likes to do, like walking along the beach as well, barefoot. So yeah, that's something that for everyday life.
Yeah, totally. I love being barefoot as well because it's really amazing for your pelvic floor. Like wearing shoes all the time, just to get a bit sex nerdy for a second, you know, the shoes that we wear, in particular things like high heels and just the kinds of shapes that we're putting our feet in, it's really damaging. It puts a lot of strain on our pelvic floor. And so walking barefoot as much as possible, you know, you're getting the reflexology, you're also strengthening ligaments and tendons and muscles that will benefit the tone and strength and articulation of your pelvic floor muscles, and therefore have an impact on pleasure and orgasm. So it's all really related. And I do notice people get really weird when they see you walking with no shoes on. And yeah, that makes me a bit sad that we've become so disconnected from something that was so natural and something we would do really regularly. But now I feel like I have to go out of my way to do it. So yeah, I love being barefoot, and even just things like, you know, having a cup of tea each morning while you read your book, or, you know, things like that. It's not, it doesn't have to be this big thing where you get, you know, all of the potions and the crystals and the fucking glass dildos and period blood and all the things. Like it can be, but, you know, just as an entry level, there's like little ritualistic things that we can do each day that help us ground, help us feel calm and safe in our body and relaxed, and yeah, I guess, you know, put us into a different space so that we can then move from there and, like you said, respond rather than react. So I love that.
And can I add with a cup of tea? Because in society, most people drink coffee, right? And I was a coffee of a day drinker. And the biggest transition that I had was replacing my coffee with a cacao or low tea, or like I love blue lotus tea, whatever your favorite thing is. Like I love the taste of coffee. However, I was finding it was disconnecting me to my soul, you know, and it was also your nervous system, it just is not in flow. It's got your peaks and then the crashes, and cacao is a stimulant that opens up your heart, but it's a slow release. So it's like just these little bits of pieces of knowledge so you can still have that ritual in the morning, let's say. But yeah, instead of having coffee, replace it with cacao or tea.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I like to experiment or flirt with little additional things that I can do to make an activity that I normally do and don't think too much about, make it a little bit more intentional or ritualistic. So maybe rather than just chucking a tea bag in the cup and whatever, I'll make it in a really beautiful pot of tea. And for some reason, it doesn't taste any different, but I feel a little bit extra special and like I've put that extra effort in, and that it's more of a ritual, and therefore that herbal tea that I've just brewed is like, you know, must be better for me because I've kind of done this beautiful. And, you know, if you think about the Japanese tea ceremonies and just the really ritualistic kind of very intentional way they go about that, you know, it really does like speak to the power and beauty that you can find in being more ritualistic about everyday things. So yeah, it's cool. And I feel like in our culture, like we really, I don't know, we lack a lot of reverence and ceremony around most things. We don't have a whole lot of I guess ceremony or tradition or things like that. And then, you know, if it comes to something like, I'm often thinking about, you know, menstruation and sex and birth and these things that are like my jam, my topics. We lack so much reverence and ceremony around those because we've just been so like divorced from our cultural heritage, and we don't have, you know, we don't have a lineage, or well, I mean, we're disconnected from any lineage of like ceremony and tradition because we're kind of in this Western world, and like that's really sad to me. So I was wondering like what your thoughts are on that and how you kind of tackle that disconnect from reverence around things like sex and periods and yeah.
Well, first, like I'll start with like the birth, because I was super scared to have birth like my child myself because of like all the horror stories. Like everyone speaks about how bad it is, right? Until my sister got pregnant, and she really showed me the way, because like I have a personal belief that if you have morning sickness, it's your body purging the energetics of like getting you ready into motherhood, right? And then when she gave birth, it was a beautiful ceremony. Like we were out in the garden, we were playing crystal balls, we were guiding her through the breath, and it was just, there was like 10 of us, like it's a village, you know, we're massaging her, we're doting on her, like allowing her to loosen up her jaw so her yoni was open, and it was just magical that it got rid of all fears. And it was just like, this is what it should be like coming into this planet, you know, not with bright white lights of the hospital, like, you know, how it was just, it was exactly how I would desire it to go, you know, just like as a community, coming back to the community. And that was magical.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then like more and more people were sharing their positive birth stories, because more and more people are having home births and like with the doulas and the midwives, and having it as a community and coming back to those times, you know, where women trust their bodies instead of listening externally for validation from a doctor if it's not dilating a certain amount of time. You know, society brings us to ask the doctor's questions instead of coming back to self. And no one knows our body like ourselves. And that transition from maiden to mother should really be the biggest initiation for ourselves, to trust our body and know that it knows what it's doing. So I'm super excited for that initiation when it comes for me to share the story as well of the whole journey. But menstruation, like I used to think my period was like gross, you know, because I didn't understand. I was never taught the knowledge of how sacred it is. Like we have monthly cycles of shredding and manifesting, and the knowledge just was never there, you know. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago, the first initiation was painting with my blood. And my sister actually taught me that, and that was beautiful because it's got like womb codes in it, and just to be able to bring that practice into play. And then it went to giving it to the land. And so every cycle now I collect it in my moon cup, and from my womb to the earth mother's moon, and I just say a few words. Like, it doesn't have to be anything big. Like, I just collect it in a jar and then just give it back to the land with the intention. Like, intention is everything. So whatever you put out is what you get back. And so that's something that I love doing. But yeah, the knowledge is just not out there. And like, if I knew about, say, like Yoni Steaming, like when I was a teenager, like that has really helped me to connect into my yoni and my cycle and my womb, and to help me for my, like, leading up to my menstrual cycle as well. So it's like all these steps, and like yoni steaming, it is a ritual, but it's also just a connection to self. Again, it's just that word, but it's a space for you to connect into your body, to connect into your emotions, to see what arises for you, a time for you to be in stillness. And yeah, like all these self-care practices that definitely weren't around in school, but I've learned along the way. And that's definitely a devotion for myself, to create an organization to have these rites of passages from every step in the womanhood journey, from like blessing ways to, going from in your first period, and to know what you can do to help that connection to self.
Yeah, gorgeous. Yeah, and I want to get more into like specific, a lot of people wouldn't have heard of blessing ways, and I want to get more into some specific rituals in a little bit. But I think maybe if we just start from scratch and we start with like probably the least woo, and then we work our way up to like blood magic and sex magic and things like that. That might be a good trajectory. So let's talk about, like what categories have we got in terms of rituals? Like, what makes a ritual, like what are some different instances that we can use them in and stuff? Hey, Babe Towns. So sorry to interrupt, but I simply had to pop my head into the lounge here and mention another virtual lounge that you've got to get around. It's the Labia Lounge Facebook group that I've created for listeners of the potty to mingle in. And there you'll find extra bits and bobs like freebies or discounts for offerings from guests who've been interviewed on the podcast, inspiring and thought-provoking conversations, and support from a community of labial legends. I also have an account on the fab new app Sunroom, which is a platform created by women for women and non-binary folk, and where there's no shadow banning or censorship of sex-positive content, unlike with the other platforms that I'm on. So you can hit up my Sunroom for extra content and real and raw life updates, because I'll be sharing on there from now on all of the stuff that I can't post anywhere else. My vision for both of these is that they become really supportive, educational, and hilarious resources for you to have more access to me and a safe space to ask questions that you can't ask anywhere else. So head over to the links in the show notes and I'll hopefully see you in there. And now, back to the episode.
Cool. So let's just start with morning practices, because that was my biggest life-changing transformation, because that's when I chose to start devoting time to myself, because we are our own healers, and for us to become the embodiment of any practice, we need to create spaces for ourselves to really just dive in. So for me, like, a ritual is just opening up a space, so every time when I wake up in the morning, I will connect into my soul. Like, literally, you can just say, good morning, soul, like connecting in with my soul now, allowing these energetics to come through, connecting into my heart, and just taking 3 deep breaths into my heart. Like our breath is our medicine, and breath work has been a big pivotal moment for us, and we can all breathe. However, a lot of us are shallow breathing. So we're breathing in our chest instead of deep belly breaths. So taking a deep breath in our belly and then our chest, and then exhaling with sound as well. You know, a sigh is great for your body to relax. So yeah, those two different breath works that I do every day. A grounding breath is in through the nose for 4, out through the mouth for 4, and bringing in that sound on the exhale. And then when I want to activate, if I want energy, you know, a natural way of gaining energy is circular breathing. So in through the mouth and out through the mouth. And it's only like literally 22 breaths. Like a lot of people's, they say they don't have time. Okay, they say I don't have time for myself, or I've got to do this. They're in the doing frequency instead of the being frequency. And literally 22 breaths literally take like 2 minutes. Like it's nothing at all just to set up your day. So just getting out of that excuse and then choosing choosing yourself. And breath is just such a great way to do that. It relaxes you, it regulates your nervous system, and everyone can do it. You don't need anything to do it. All you need is yourself and a space. And it's great to actually teach your kids this as well. Like it's like you don't even need to be by yourself to do it. If you're a parent, like invite your children into these spaces with you and incorporate this and let them know what you're doing. Okay, let's take in some grounding breaths just to be in this space right now. Like it's really just about the communication and the allowance. And same with like, I know a few of my friends, they meditate with their kids as well. It's, just allowing that space.
Gorgeous. So what other morning rituals are you in favor of, or what do you enjoy doing in your morning routine?
Well, like this morning. Open up space, connecting to my energies. I'll always have a cacao most days, not every day, because intention is everything. So I will always set my intention for the day. Like, how do I desire to feel? What do I desire to get out of today? I'll breathe in my intention, hold it in my heart, and then let go of all expectations. Like, because really just trusting it to divine, like whatever will be, and just, letting it all go. Grounding, I'll always make sure I go out to nature at least 30 minutes a day. And they're like the 3 things that I will do every day, just breath, meditation, set my intention, and ground, like those 3 things. And then it will vary depending on how I'm feeling throughout the rest of the day. So say if there's something heavy on my heart, I'll set aside time to feel my emotions. Like we need to feel to heal. So that might be in regards to having a few rounds of breath and allow the grief to emerge or the rage, having a pillow to scream into if that's what's alive for me. I have baths most days. I love baths. And like this again, we use the words ritual, but like who loves baths? And it's literally just setting up that space for yourself. You can have some incense and some candles and really that yummy space for yourself, listening to some music or some quiet time. And like infrared saunas are amazing for this as well. I have baths most days just for some quiet time and to relax the muscles. And dance, like I love to dance. So just putting on some music to move my body, because physical exercise has been a little bit of a block for me. But dancing is what brings me joy. And again, it's that movement, and that's what, that's what brings me that exercise and the fun and the play as well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, dance is such a beautiful. It's so beneficial in so many ways, but especially if you set the intention that this, I'm going to dance to one song each morning, and this is a devotional practice to my physical body, or to my feminine energy, or you can kind of make it more ritually just through your intention. And, it's the same with baths. Like, I love, like, making my bath as pimped as possible. I'm like,
Yeah.
what else can I put in there? I'll go out in the garden and get some rosemary and lavender and like flowers and just anything I can find. And then I'll put oats or essential oils or like salts. And I'm just like trying to put as many things in there as possible. And I think that there's just this like, it's just this, I don't know, urge to just get a little bit witchy sometimes. And maybe it's not for everyone, but I know it's definitely a thing, especially, with those of us with feminine essences, like dominant feminine essences, like we do have that urge to get a bit witchy and to make a potion out of our bath and like anoint our bodies with these things, because it's just that extra little bit of like loving care, and it's sending this really beautiful message to ourselves and our subconscious and our bodies, like we're worth it, we're worth putting that extra bit of effort in and making it just that little bit extra special, I suppose. So that's kind of how I make everyday things. It's the same as making the pot of tea in a nice pot, chucking extra things in the bath, maybe lighting some candles or something, putting on some nice music. There's just ways that you can kind of, pimp it out a little bit. So yeah, I love
100%.
that. Those are all really great suggestions. I'd love to talk about something that's a little bit more taboo, and that's blood rituals and periods and things like that, and how we can kind of introduce ritual and reverence to that a little bit, and also play and fun. But first, I'd love to do this segment, Get Pregnant and Die.
Don't have sex, because you will get pregnant and die. Don't have sex in the missionary position. Don't have sex standing up. Just don't do it. Promise?
So I was wondering if you had a story or an anecdote about how your sex education failed you, maybe, just a funny story about a ridiculous sex ed teacher you had, or I don't know, something that you would have loved to have learnt more about. Basically just anything to do with sex ed. Give us what you got.
Okay. I just remember when I first got mucus on my undies. And we're not taught this in school. I thought there was something wrong with me. Like literally, I was so ashamed and I was scared. I didn't tell anyone. And it was 3 days that I had this. And then I saw my sister's undies and I was like, oh, you have it too? But her response was like, yeah, duh. Like all women got it. Like, so she shut me down too. Like, why don't you know this? And because we're not taught it in school, my mum, she had a car accident, so she hasn't been able to teach me. My sister didn't teach me. So it's like, where are we supposed to learn this from? And the shame around it as well that carried. So we've got the menstrual blood, but we also have our mucus, and that's such an important part of our cycles. And I would have loved to have learned like the different consistencies of like what that means, of what part of the cycle we are at, and like, because that's about knowing our body. And that's the biggest thing that I could add to that.
That is such a great example. That's like, I reckon most people with a vagina can relate to that, because I certainly had no idea what was going on or whether that was normal or to be expected. And I think in puberty, so many things just come out of the blue that we have no idea are coming, and we have no idea whether they're normal. And there's no fucking way I was going to be going and asking someone like a teacher or my parent about, mucus coming out of my vag. Like, no fucking way. So I had a similar, I think I remember feeling really weird about it and a bit grossed out and a little bit like worried for quite a while, until I was like, well, this is just kind of happening and nothing bad is, resulting. So maybe it's okay. And it just kind of, faded into it being normal, but it was just never spoken about. So yeah, thank you for that example. I love that. Everyone, talk to your kids about vaginal mucus. Warn them.
Needs to happen.
Oh my God. All right. Well, well, we're kind of on the right track then to talk about other things that come out of our vag. Let's talk periods and menstrual rituals, blood magic. Like, let's give people an idea about what we mean by blood magic if you haven't heard of it. Give us a rundown and then maybe some examples of things that you do or that people could do if they want to start exploring introducing ritual into their relationship with their cycle.
So the one thing I love is like our menstrual blood has stem cells, like they are rejuvenating. And, a big pivotal point in my connection to my womb was when I started doing face masks with my blood. And like, because it is, it's got stem cells in it. So why wouldn't we be using this, on our beautiful skin? And that's a deep devotion to ourselves as well, which I absolutely loved. And then, I use it for manifesting. And so giving back to the land, like I said before, I will go out to Gaia and I will put one hand on my womb and one hand on the earth and just really tuning into what I'm calling in. What do I desire for this next month? Because we are so lucky that we get to do this monthly. And what I love is that now I love my cycle. I love my menstrual bleed and I can't wait to co-create with her every month. And, but at the beginning I grieved a lot for how I used to feel. And, just be aware of the emotions that will arise when you start to devote to these practices. There is a forgiving of the self for all the times that we haven't, and it's just allow that forgiveness. And all we have is now, and it's one step at a time, and we've only got what we have, and this knowledge hasn't been around. So it's just allow the grief to come and then the connection to come, which is a big part of the process of one step at a time. And remember just to do one step at a time, as well. It took me a while to want to put blood on my face. And a lot of my clients, a big step for them is just to get a moon cup because blood isn't their thing, And so it's literally just take all these tools and just be okay, what's my next step? Which will have my connection to self and taking me a little bit outside my comfort zone, but I feel so much better for it. So yeah, just connecting into Gaia is a big part of it for me. Painting with it, like I said before, you can literally do codes. So yeah, whatever comes through, I painted my Yoni on a portrait, and then I added my womb codes onto it as well. And so now it's a part of my altar. Beautiful Yoni is our life force energy, our womb is our creation space. So every time I sit in ceremony with myself, I'm connecting into my womb, what creation is going to come through for me now, and really just holding in that space. But yeah, the monthly thing is literally just connecting in with Gaia for me, and my face mask. They're the two things that I'll do every month. Sometimes I'll paint, but that's not every month.
I've got a friend who I sort of, I've known her for years. We trained in yoni mapping therapy together and used to run workshops together and things. And she puts her moon cup blood in a glass of water on her altar, I think from the first day. And then on the last day of her bleed, I think she even has a little sip of some of it, which kind of freaked me out. I was like, oh, how much bacteria has been able to harbor in that? Well, it's sitting there. But anyway, she never got sick. And yeah, often, sometimes I'll just put a little dab of it on my, in between my eyebrows, on my forehead, get my third eye nice and charged up. And I don't feel anything from any of this. I'm not super sensitive energetically. I'm not one of those, I wish I was, but I'm not one of those people that can go and, place their hands on the earth and just feel this connection or this energy flowing up through me. That's not a thing for me at this point, at least. So I can really relate to people that are listening to this being what the fuck's a womb code? What's Gaia? But I do enjoy I enjoy doing it anyway, because I'm well, definitely can't hurt, and it's something that's quite intentional. It's going about it with reverence. It's, you know, something about it self-loving and just this little bit of wild woman, which I enjoy. And I think we're just so over domesticated now that it's like horrifying to most people, the thought of putting blood on their face. Or, you know, I like to go sometimes and sit on the earth, sit in some grass and bleed directly onto the earth. And something about that feels really beautiful and like wild, you know, as well. And, you know, the face mask thing, definitely. I've talked on this podcast before about doing that with semen as well, and sometimes semen and blood mixed together. And you know, there's spermidine, which is this compound that's in sperm, that's now being marketed as like the number one like skincare, regenerative, anti-aging fucking elixir of youth, that you can buy for crazy amounts of money that they're manufacturing. You can just get it in jizz. So yeah, just slap some of that on your face, get the stem cells from the blood. Like that's great. Yeah, there's just so many different things that you can do, like put the blood on your pot plants and things, and like you were saying. And yeah, I think it's really cool to start interacting with it more, even if you don't necessarily feel, you know, the energetic connection or feel recharged by it or feel anything tangible. I think the action of doing it is really special and beautiful. And also it just like kind of takes the period and takes blood and takes, you know, our vaginas and this part of womanhood that's been so vilified and shamed, and you know, we've been trained to feel is like repulsive and, you know, yucky. And you know, it's like interacting with it so much that it sort of just bit by bit dismantles that shame and really like disempowers the stigma so that it doesn't affect us as much. And I think like just even if it grosses you out a bit at first, if you can, just trying to interact with your period blood in whatever way a little bit more can be really cool for releasing shame and getting over that revulsion of that part of our body and our blood. Because otherwise we're just pretty much like trying to avoid having to touch it or interact with it or even look at it as much as possible and ignore the fact that we've even got a period and a vagina that bleeds. And yeah, I think there's something really sad about that, how normalized that approach has become when it comes to periods. So I'm all about the blood rituals, baby.
Yes. And like a big healing thing in my relationship is when we made love on my bleed, and like, yeah, he anointed himself as well, like on the third eye. And that was big healing in itself, because like I carried a lot of shame when I had my bleed. It's like, oh no, we can't make love, whatnot, in past conditioning. However, it's super potent to make love during that time, and for him to make me feel so safe as well. And it was super turn on, because I get really horny on my bleed. And so it was just beautiful to have that space to co-create that magic, and for him to anoint himself as well. That was super powerful. So men, like, you can honor your woman during this time as well, and be a part of the magic. So yeah, and like, yeah, I've used my blood for naturopath as well. But after I've Yoni steamed for like 3 months to clear out any energetics. And also like after the few times of Yoni steaming, there was a few blood clots as well, clearing out of the womb space. And so once I felt like it was clear, like so after a few months, then yeah, I was just using my fresh from the yoni straight to my mouth, like a few drops. And yeah, that was super connection as well, to receive it that way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, awesome. I did an episode on Yoni steaming with Laura Elizabeth, actually, who you probably know.
Yes.
So yeah, if anyone's interested in Yoni steaming, definitely check that one out. That was fun. So cool. Like, what about sex? What about lovemaking rituals? Because you sort of touched on that, and like period sex can be so potent and powerful and so healing. And I've definitely talked about that a lot on this podcast, and so many men are really into it as well. So, you know, there's nothing to be worried about or ashamed of. But yeah, what about some lovemaking rituals or rituals you can do with a partner or a lover? Excuse the interruption, my loves, but I'm shamelessly seeking reviews and 5-star ratings for the potty because, as I'm sure you've noticed by now, it's pretty fab. And the more people who get to hear it, the more people it can help. Reviews and ratings help me curry favour with the algorithmic gods and get suggested to other listeners to check out. Plus, they make me feel really good and appreciated as I continue to pour my heart and soul into creating this baby for you. And I promise I don't mazz over them or anything. I mostly just tuck them away for a rainy day when I'm filled with self-doubt and existential dread about being self-employed, which is fairly frequently. So you see, leaving a review really does make a difference, and it's an easy little act of support that you can take in just a minute or two by either going to Spotify and leaving 5 stars for the show or writing a written review and leaving 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts. Choose your poison, or if you're a real overachiever, you could do both. Whoa now. If you are writing a review though, just be sure to only use G-rated words because despite the fact that this is a podcast about sexuality, words like sex can be censored and your review won't actually show up. Lame. Anyway, what was that? Oh, you're going to go do it right now while I wait. Okay. Yeah. No, that's a great idea. May as well just quickly click that 5-star button before we get on with it and, forget about it and get on with your day. I'm hearing them roll in. I'm hearing those 5 stars. Oh my God, I make myself cringe. Anyway, thank you much, Lee. You're a total gem, and I'll let you get back to the episode now.
I love this because I was super resistant in this space until I started opening up my heart, right? So it all starts with your own self-love and devotion to self, and then you can bring it into your relationship. And so from that space, we set up ceremony, create the space again with the incense or the Palo Santo, the candles, and then it starts with eye gazing and just really being in each other's presence and just seeing what emotions come up, and then any words of affirmation as well. We can take turns of just saying some really beautiful things to one another and really allowing them to land in our heart. Because even though we're in a relationship, sometimes it's really hard to receive this love. We need to be open to giving and receiving love. So creating this space to really feel each other's presence and really allow the words to land is really healing in itself. And then we'll set our intention for the beautiful ceremony that we're about to embark on, and you can use this for sex magic for manifestation. It can be whatever your heart's desires. Dream big. Sex magic, when we set intention, is super powerful, and this surrendering it all, bringing in that pleasure to the manifestation. And then it's all about worshipping of the body. So it's we'll massage each other. Sam, my partner, he will always massage me. For a big point of our relationship, I didn't want to give back to him because of my past conditioning. I was no, I want to receive because of past, when I've had sex with other people, I've felt like I've been taken advantage of or not respected. So all of a sudden, when I'm in a safe relationship, I just want to receive. And now it's a beautiful giving and receiving, but it's taken time for me to feel safe around the masculine again. And so I desired to be worshipped, and he was beautiful, and having that space to make my body, to open up my yoni. It takes a lot of time for women to get aroused. Well, for me, it takes me a lot to get aroused and to be in the space. And massage definitely turns me on. And then now we're at that communications phase of, he will ask me, is your yoni ready for, can I enter your yoni? And I've learnt that from when I first got my yoni massage. Yoni mapping, what you give, they ask, is your body, is your yoni welcoming me? And that is such a big part of any sexual encounters, because first of all, it allows us to speak our truth, and our yoni is connected to our throat. So if she's saying no, then voice it and be like, no, I feel complete for today. And that is super empowering in itself. And so, but if she's saying yes, it's like, yes, but I've given you that permission. You haven't just decided. It's okay, because no one knows our body besides ourselves. And then just bringing in that beautiful, sensual touch. And then when we're actually in that penetration, we're breathing together. We're doing that breath, because I've always been a lot in my mind as well about the finishing of the orgasm. And the breath allows you to be in the present moment and literally just allowing the journey to unfold. And the orgasm is almost like the entire practice, because you're in ecstasy, you're in pleasure. It's not about that finishing product. It's literally about the now. And I have released so many emotions during making love, because anytime that there might have been pain, I would be like, oh, there's something there. And I've raged in a session before. I've like screamed my head off, and he just hold me there. Obviously, you need to be able to let your partner know, like, if he can hold that space, because that could be a bit too much for some men. But my partner's in the personal development work too. So he could just hold me there while I raged, and then underneath the rage was grief. And it was just so healing. And then it went to pleasure. But to be able to feel your emotions as they arise, and we have a lot of sexual trauma. If it's not this lifetime, then it's definitely our ancestors. It's all within our cellular memory. And making love can be a massive healing practice if you allow it to be. And then it's just beautiful, the higher levels of pleasure and bliss that you can achieve from when you surrender and you feel. So,
Yeah, preach. I'm picking up what you're putting down. That's all my philosophy as well. So what about solo pleasuring? Like, if you're single, how can we make our self-pleasuring practice a little bit more reverent or ritualistic? Is that something that I am often sort of chatting with clients about as well? Like, it starts with you. It starts with your relationship with yourself and your body and your sexuality. So what are some suggestions that you have, or what do you do in your solo pleasure routine?
Well, for me, I like Miraplay. So to be able to see myself, and like, it might not even be just like with your yoni, it might just be starting off with eye gazing and then bringing in some sensual touch to make sure you feel safe within your body, to bring in that breast massage, and just to like bring in that pleasure and taking your time with your body, Our breasts are an extension of our heart. So how much more love can we open to receive? And it all starts with ourselves. And then bringing it to our yoni, and, just taking time, but actually like looking at yourself. Like, this was a big pivotal moment for myself, is like turning yourself on. And like being like, you are just divine, you are beautiful, and like giving yourself these words of affirmation. A beautiful practice, I get a rose, and I like the feeling of the petals on my yoni, and just like the sensual touch, on my breasts and things like that. And it's not necessarily about the penetration as well. Like, you can have pleasure in so many other ways until your yoni is like, I'm ready now. It's not about just flicking the bean. It's about bringing in those sensual touches and making her ready and opening up like a beautiful flower. And this is still something that I'm exploring with more self-pleasure in different ways. But that's definitely where I've started.
Yeah, beautiful. I know there's just so many nice ways that we can add just that little bit of extra intention into things. And, sometimes I'll chat with clients about self-pleasuring rather than masturbating. It's just that tiny reframe, and we'll talk about how we can make a self-pleasure ritual out of it rather than just that wham bam, thank you ma'am, flicking the bean, blah, blah, blah. Maybe having a beautiful bath beforehand, or doing some yoga, or having a dance or meditate, or some breath work, and then maybe moving into the breast massage and just kind of really gently and easefully moving towards genital touch last, so that we're honoring the whole body. We're really allowing time for our arousal processes to cascade and for things to start to build in their own time. And even if nothing happens and it doesn't turn into, anything penetrative or even genital focused, we've still done all of this beautiful ritualistic honoring, self-worshipping stuff, which is also beautiful and beneficial, and also sends the subconscious the message that, you're loved, you're worth it, you deserve this. It's a very self-loving message to be sending, to actually spend time and energy on ourselves, no matter what that is. We often don't give ourselves the time to even do that. 22 breaths, like you were talking about in the morning, can feel like you get through 5 of them and you're like, no, I don't have time for this. I need to get up and get on with my day. How is this possibly going to help? But if you actually did sit and get through the 22, like, there's no doubt that you will feel grounded, more calm, more connected, and grateful to yourself that you did that. So yeah, I love that. And I want to also, I guess, like, change the focus and chat about how we can do rituals that aren't even kind of like sex focused or whatever, but more something you could do like as a family or in the home, like with, which you touched upon, things you can do with your kids. But just quickly first, I'd love to do the segment TMI. We love it. So do you have a TMI story for us?
TMI, we love it. Say TMI, we love it.
Too much inspiration. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, okay, so when I was single, I liked to sleep around, and like I saw that as my adventure, and like I would always go to their house because then I could leave in the morning, and I'd keep a little black book, and I got up to 73 men, and for me, I was proud of all those moments, but now looking back, I'm like, I was looking for external validation. I was looking outside of myself for that love instead of giving it to myself. And, I love the adventure, and like that's why I would write like what I did that night, where I ended up being and things like that. But like I would love the next morning, because it was in London, so... And like it's not a walk of shame, but yeah, I go on the tube and it's from the night before, and like, no one knows, but I know, and I'm just smiling to myself because it was fun. Like I would always do it with the intention of wanting to and desiring to. And that's why, it was fun for so long, until I was like, it's not filling that void. Like why am I wanting just that one night stand and not like a committed relationship? And it was because I was scared. I was scared to actually meet myself in that love, and I wasn't giving myself that love that I truly desired. And that's why my frequency wasn't inviting that in either. But yeah, 73, that's too much information, but I'm proud of it.
Oh my God, I love that. I'm probably kind of similar. I used to keep a journal and write all about my escapades and my sexcapades, and I found it something that I was, I guess, proud of, or like found really fun and empowering for like quite a while there. It was a little bit of that like gross sort of like culture of, another notch on the belt or another trophy, or like, you're like a little bit of that for sure. I think I was trying to play it.
Like I wanted to be the man. Yeah.
Yeah. So super interesting, because I can definitely relate to that. That was kind of, where I came from with all of that as well.
High five, sister, represent.
But yeah, you're right. It definitely wasn't fulfilling me in a lot of ways, and so much of it was to get that external validation. So can relate. But all right, let's chat about things that, aren't sex related, that are still nice little rituals you can bring in and maybe, bring into the home if you've got a family, kids, share house, something like that.
I mean, for me growing up, we played games and like people wouldn't see this as a ritual, but it's that space of the presence of the adults and the children, and it's that beautiful environment of games, and we'd love card games and, like we'd play rummy or Uno, and it's just that fun family environment. Like rituals doesn't have to be all serious all the time. Like play is such a big value of mine, and it's such a beautiful frequency to bring in. And like, yeah, all it desires is that presence of being one another, sharing conversation, having that joy. And I feel like if you can gift that to the children and be in that same environment, like, I honor those games with my parents so much. Like I felt like that was our quality time. Also like reading before going to bed, having that space. My dad I would call it a rub back. I'd ask for a rub back. Sometimes I'd get a back massage and then, reading, and like I really cherished that time before falling asleep because that was our time. And like evening rituals are it can be a big part of our lives as well. Like for me, like it's just like reading, it's journaling. So as a family, just bringing that to the kids, and let's wind down time, and having that space together.
Yeah, I love that. We used to do a fair bit of like massaging and little back rubs and things like that in our family too. And I have always read before I went to bed. Like when I couldn't read, my mum would read us, books. And then when Harry Potter came out, like she'd read a chapter each night or something. And then I was an avid reader. Like just my dad would confiscate my books and hide them because he'd often bust me like reading until 2 a.m. or something. And then I'd be so tired for school and I just couldn't put it down. And so like even now I read, usually 5, 10, 15 minutes before bed. And that is pretty much the most reliable way that I can wind down and get to sleep. And if I don't have a book, unless I'm absolutely exhausted and, there's not a whole lot on my mind or a lot that I'm ticking about, I really struggle to fall asleep at night without doing my little bedtime ritual of like reading the book. And, I'll have my blue blockers on a couple of hours before I go to bed, and I might do some yin to some nice music or whatever. A lot of the time I'm just watching Netflix, but, I will always still have that little window where I read my book in bed. And I've been trying to get my partner into it too, just because it's such a valuable thing to do. And also so many people have books that they want to read and they never find time. And I'm like, what do you mean? Just every night before bed, a few pages, you will eventually get through it. Like you just chip away, and it helps me just wind down. My eyelids start drooping. It's so great. And yeah, we also have this running joke. We have like a book that we write ideas in because my partner and I will often get ideas of things that we want to do when we have kids as a family, and like things we want to remember to like try to, integrate into our family experience. And something that we do now that we're definitely going to do with our kids is we moon the moon. On a full moon, we go out there and we just drop our jacks and we moon the moon. We smack our bums. We just like think about what we want to, we set an intention or we think about what we want to create. And it's like a 2-minute thing, there's nothing too crazy. It's almost a bit irreverent in its reverence, like, which is the best, like the playfulness and not taking it all too seriously. I think that's important because that can be kind of, I get a bit sort of off put by some of the really, that super woke spiri community stuff when it's all just a bit too serious for me. And I almost want to just, have a laugh at the back of the classroom and be a bit cheeky or something. So yeah, you can actually just do rituals that are like made up, that you made up, and that can be what your family does. And we've got heaps of different ideas of things we want to do with the kids that, they would count as rituals. Like, playing games is so beautiful. It's such good quality time. We played a lot of Uno as well, and that was a nice thing to do in your PJs after dinner before bed. And yeah, totally relate to that. It's so nice. All right. Well, I think we got to wrap up now because of time, but I'm wondering if you have any like last pieces of advice or something you want to leave the listeners with just to help them kind of feel inspired. To kind of bring a bit more ritual into their own lives. Hey, me again. If you'd like to support the potty and you've already given it 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening on, I want to mention that you can buy some really dope merch from the website and get yourself a Labia Lounge tote, tee, togs. Yep, you heard that right. I even have Labia Lounge bathers. Or a cute fanny pack if that'd blow your hair back. So if fashion isn't your passion though, you can donate to my Buy Me a Coffee donation page, which is actually called Buy Me a Soy Chai Latte, because I'll be the first to admit I'm a bit of a Melbourne cafe tosser like that. And yes, that is my coffee order. You can do a once-off donation or an ongoing membership and sponsor me for as little as 3 fat ones a month. And I also have a Sunroom profile over on the Sunroom app, as I've mentioned. And I also offer one-on-one coaching and online courses that'll help you level up your sex life and relationship with yourself and others in a really big way. So every bit helps, because it ain't cheap to put out a sweet podcast into the world every week out of my own pocket. So I will be undyingly grateful if you support me and my biz financially in any of these ways. And if you like, I'll even give you a mental BJ with my mind from the lounge itself. Saucy. I'll pop the links in the show notes. Thank you. Later.
I just want to let them know that you don't have to do it alone. Like, there's so many tools out there, and if you need accountability, like, there's so many mentors and guides and people that can help you get to where you want to be. And we're all here to walk each other home. And I had accountability I always have a mentor because I am devoted to my evolution and my growth and devotion to self. But at the start, I needed someone to remind me, like that accountability, because we find it really easy to do things for someone else. And if someone is telling us to do it, like, oh yeah, I'll do it, and just check that off the list. But when we're the only ones making ourselves accountable, sometimes it is a little bit harder to get into that the devotion and actually choosing yourself. So it's okay, and there is so many people out there to help us on this journey. And one step at a time. Just break it down one step at a time. What's one thing that I can do today for my devotion to self? And that is literally a ritual.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I love that. All right, amazing. Well, do you have any offerings coming up at the moment, or any I can't remember if there was a cheeky discount you were going to offer listeners about something. I actually should have checked in my in the email beforehand. But yeah, anything you want to kind of plug before we jump off?
Yeah, of course. So I'll have a link to a free meditation for a Yoni steam. So if you're wanting to try Yoni steaming for the first time, then it's beautiful practice to be guided through it in your own space and to create that beautiful space and that self-care practice. I'm also offering 10% off Wharatonga Ora, which is a traditional womb massage. It's a Maori womb massage, which is a great practice to be held in. It's using a raki stick, and so we're pushing trigger points in the upper buttock and the pelvic line, and each trigger point represents something else, like childhood trauma or parental programming or scarcity, and it's like a 2-hour breathwork session because you are staying connected to your breath, and I'm guiding you through. And when I'm pressing each trigger point, it allows you to feel your emotions through the exhale. And because we're feeling suppressed emotions, a lot of my clients, they feel a lot of rage, and then underneath the rage is grief. So I just wanted to offer that. So if you're wanting to be held in the space, then that's for you. I am based in Perth, for anyone that's listening in Perth.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you. I'll pop all of those links to Yani's offerings in the show notes and in the Labia Lounge Facebook group. So that's a wrap. Thank you so much, beautiful.
Yeah, it's been so great chatting. Thank you. I've loved
All
it.
right. See you later, everyone. And that's it, darling hearts. Thank you for stopping by the Labia Lounge. Your bum groove in the couch will be right where you left it, just waiting for you to sink back in for some more double L action next time. And in the meantime, if you'd be a dear and subscribe, share this episode, or leave a review on iTunes, then you can pat yourself on the snatch, because that, my dear, is a downright act of sex-positive feminist activism. And you'd be supporting my vision to educate, empower, demystify, and destigmatize with this here podcast. Also, I'm always open to feedback, topic ideas that you'd love to hear covered, or guest suggestions. So feel free to get in touch via my website at freyagraph.com or say hey over on Insta. My handle is Freya_graph_YMT, and I seriously hope you're following me on there, because damn, we have fun. We have fun. Anyway, later labial legends. I'll see you next time.